This tutorial is part of a YouTube playlist. You can access this and many more of the tutorials in this course. If you do like this YouTube playlist and you want to access the whole course, you can do on Udemy. The link to the YouTube playlist and YouTube course is in the video description. Starting where we finished off in the previous tutorial, we have now integrated Alembic and the migration tools. So we should now be able to migrate. Now we just need to perform some checks before we move any further. Let's just make sure that we have our Docker containers up and running. Remember, the containers hold or runs and manages our database. So open up Docker desktop. I just checked. I removed all the containers. If you have any containers running, I'm just starting fresh again. So there are no containers running at the moment. So I can go ahead in my terminal, type in Docker, or actually, let's make sure I'm in the right directory. So I need to cd back up to the main root directory. So let's go ahead and Docker compose up and then use the D flag to run in the background. Okay, so I've now got my containers running. So my database is running. I can double check. If you navigate to 127.0.0.1:80, don't forget the dot, so 127.0.0.1:8080. That would take you to the adminer. And from there, we can log in just to check to make sure the database is running correctly. So username is Postgres, password is Postgres, database is FK-commerce. Let's log in. It looks like we can log in. Now, these are the same connection details we provided to our application, so we should be able to log in. Notice there are no tables at the moment. So let's see if we can now migrate the tables that we have defined in our models to our database. This would be a good time to create a new folder now in our project. I'm going to call this docs. What I can do is I can use it underscore. That means, oh, no, it doesn't. Okay, yeah, so it's going to be on the top here. I didn't make a folder. Didn't make a folder. Let's make a folder. Okay, so underscore docs. It should be near the top then, to easy to find it. So let's go ahead and create a new file. So what we're going to do here is we're going to create a file for a new file. Let's call this Alembic, and this is going to be a markdown file. Okay, so here I'm just going to add some of the commands that we're using. This will be available if you download this source code. Right, so the first thing we need to do is actually create a migration. Now, to do that, first of all, we need to initialize the migration script. And we need to do that by running the Flask db init. So let's go ahead and do that. So no such command db. Okie dokie. So let's make sure we're in the right directory. So let's cd back into our project, FK-commerce. Right, so let's run the command again. This time you can see there is an error. Okay. So let's see if we can find, so it looks like there's some foreign key constraints. So it looks like it's taken a look at our models. Potentially it's found additional arguments should be named dialect arguments got nullable. Okay, I think I realized what the problem is there. So you can see it potentially has found a problem within our model. So it can't even start to perform a migration. So let's take a look at our models in core models. So I think the problem is referring to got nullable. So I think because we set the foreign key, one of our foreign keys to nullable, true. So let's remove that for now for seasonal events. Let's go ahead and see if we can initiate the Flask. Okay, right. So now we have a different message. Done, 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 done. Login settings. So it looks like everything is good to go. Now what we have now in our project is a migration folder. So if I go into versions, there's nothing there at the moment. Okay, so what's happened now is Alembic has been initiated. So that's the first stage. So now what we need to do is actually make a migration. Okay, so first stage, initiate. Second stage is then to create a migration. So this would be the initial migration. Okay, so we're now going to run the Flask db migrate. That's going to create a migration file. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So that's now made the migration file. So Alembic has scanned our models, identified all the changes that we need to make in the database, and then it's now created a new migration file. So if I go to versions, I have this file here. This is the migration file that we have just generated. So you can see there are two functions, this upgrade, and then at the bottom here, we have a downgrade. So it's providing instructions on how to actually create the tables and actually how to roll back. So should we need to roll back, we can just run this command, this function, sorry, and it will then perform the reverse of the update. So you can see what's happening here is that we're going to be creating all these tables. So the category table, the seasonal event table, the product table, the product line table, the product image table. So you can see we're creating all of those tables there. That's what we're going to do. So that's what we need to do now, is to run this upgrade function. I will pause there a second because you may not have managed to get this far. Now, if you are having problems, then do take a look at the code base. It's likely that you've made some syntactical errors in your code. It won't be anything major at this point. So do use that to follow along. Make sure that you've aligned your initialization file and your models file before running the commands that we have just completed. Right, so assuming you are up to date and ready, we're now actually ready to apply this to the database. So we're now going to test to make sure that the code that we created previously, actually building a connection to the database, works. So for that, we run the third command, which is going to be Flask db upgrade. Upgrade referring to, like you just saw, the function in the migration file. Okay, in a migration file here. Okay, right, so let's give this a go. Oh, perfect, first time, wonderful. So it looks like everything has gone well. So let's take a look in AdMiner. Right, so in AdMiner, I'm going to do a refresh of this page. And there we go. We have a new database. We have our new tables here on the left-hand side. You can see all the tables: category, product, product image, product line, and seasonal event. Okay, so that's good going. Now we do have a problem, or we identified an issue, which we made a change in our model. So if you remember, we wanted to make sure that the seasonal event was optional as a foreign key. Just going back to the issue that we had previously, the problem was that we added the nullable inside of the parentheses. They needed to be on the outside. So that was a change that we need to make there in the seasonal event field. Hopefully now you have managed to migrate the initial set of tables over to the database. Now you may have had a few different issues that I didn't experience. Hopefully you managed to fix those by looking at the code base. Now, what we need to do now is to actually rewind everything that we've just done, because we do want to add some new tables, and we do want to, each time we migrate, just start from fresh to make sure we're all working on the same page, because otherwise we end up with trying to determine which migration we're on, and it can get a little bit more complicated at this point. And because we're still in development, we're still developing our tables, let's just make sure that we can rewind everything. So one of the benefits of using Docker is that when I'm ready to finish working with my database, I can just delete the container. So then I can go ahead and start fresh whenever I want to. So this is another great benefit of using container over, for example, installing Postgres onto my machine. Although I could just easily delete a database, this seems like a nice experience to quickly start and remove containers to build my database. So second task will be to get back into our project, look for the migration folder, just delete the whole folder. Okay, so just get rid of the whole folder. And there we go. We've now migrated, if you like, or rolled back to where we were before we actually made the migrations. So at this point, we now can go ahead and continue developing our models and fully realize all of the models that we want to build. And then we can go ahead and actually then migrate the data once again. Right, so I have updated the documentation. I will add some more documentation for example, Docker. And in addition to that, potentially the virtual environment. Once we start working with queries, I will also maybe add those in there as well. Right, so what you can do in Visual Studio Code, up the top right-hand corner, there's a little icon. You can see the pop-up there, text box. If you click on that there, you can see that you can view the markdown file in a slightly different way if you want to view and read the markdown file. So you can access the markdown file, obviously, and use the commands whenever you need them.